大家好，欢迎来到陶溪川景德镇国际工作室举办的线上讲座，我是大家的主持人及翻译李芷君。陶溪川国际教育目前上线了一系列国际大师班视频课程，还将邀请国内外艺术家定期举办艺术讲座，请大家持续关注。大家听得清我说话吗？清楚的话请在公屏上扣1。因为线上讲座用的是跨国网络，所以可能会出现信号不稳定的情况，请大家见谅。讲座过程中如果有任何问题，也可以打在评论区里，我们的工作人员会为大家解答。一切正常的话，我们的讲座就正式开始了。今晚参与讲座分享的艺术家是芬兰艺术家 Tapio 教授。Tapio 是芬兰阿尔托陶瓷艺术荣誉教授。今晚讲座的主题是艺术与设计的交互，专业领域和教育行业的改变。讲座中，塔皮欧会分享他50年从业经历中观察到的设计和教育领域的转变，以及任职期间对芬兰设计领域和教育行业变化的见解。他还将介绍他参与过的艺术与设计项目的案例，并介绍他观察生活、研究材料和秉持原创设计的方法。Welcome to the online lecture held by Taoxichuan Art Center. Today we're very honored to have invited Finnish artist Tapio Yli-Viikari as our lecturer, who is also the emeritus professor of ceramic art at Aalto University. The title of today's lecture is Interaction of Art and Design, Changes in Professions and Education. During the lecture, Tapio will share his 50 years of experience in the field of design and education, as well as his insights into the changes in the Finnish design field and education industry during his tenure. He will also introduce the cases of art and design projects he has participated in and share his ways of observing life, studying the materials, and creating original design. Now, let's welcome him to have his speech. Professor, you may start.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. Can I? Okay, now I can see myself. Okay, thank you. Yes. First of all, thank you very, very much for this invitation. During the time when the travel is not so possible, it is very, very nice to be able to join you at least this way. But I have to say that I rather would like to be in Jingdezhen now than being here in Finland and participating this way. It is a bit feeling like being lost when I'm sitting home and thinking about the audience being so far away. But let's try. I'm not very used to this kind of lecturing. Anyhow, we will try. And I'm glad that I have so good professionals in Jingdezhen to help me if something goes wrong. I would like to, I guess I have to first try to share my screen.
首先非常感谢大家前来参与今晚的线上讲座。现在在这个现在全球疫情蔓延的情况下，我没有办法亲身来到中国景德镇，直接与大家面对面的进行讲座。我对这种线上讲座的形式并不是很熟练，我感觉大家离我非常遥远，但是让我们尝试一下。现在我要为大家分享我的屏幕。
Okay, now I have to ask how it was, how I do share my screen to you.
It's already done. It's already shared.
Okay,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm
to Could you click on full screen? Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, I guess we don't need. Yeah. Wait a minute. Yeah. Okay, here we are. To start with the title, Interaction, Art and Design, Changes in Profession and Education. So when I put this title, I'm thinking about my own career as an artist and designer. You know, I'm educated as a potter, ceramic artist. I started my studies some 50 years ago in Art and Design University, which then later became Aalto University, where I am also teaching now. So so I'm looking back to half century, and another time issue maybe I should mention here is that some 10 years of this I have been using in industry as a designer and head of art and design in our biggest porcelain company, Arabia factory. But then rest of my time I have been teaching art and design for ceramic students here in Finland, but I've also been holding professorships in United States and also teaching in China, some courses in Beijing and so on. And China, I've been spending time some 25 years. So half of my career, China has played a big role to the way I'm looking into the title. Please.
首先关于讲座的标题艺术与设计的互动，我想说的是这个主题已经在我的脑海中萦绕已久。50年前我在阿代农艺术学院，也就是后来的这个学院后来被并入了阿尔托大学，我在那里接受了陶艺专业的训练。我回顾半个世纪以前我想到作为一名陶艺家以及设计师的创作生涯，前10年的时间内我都在北极陶艺中心任职，而大部分的后来的40年时间我都在教书。我在芬兰、美国以及中国都有教书的经历，而在中国我从25年前开始就有教授陶艺课程的经验，因此对我来说中国是非常重要的。
And when I'm looking back 50 years and I'm thinking about changes what have happened in profession, it has been very big and dramatic changes. Life as an artist and designer was very much more simple in some ways in 70s when I start my studies. Philosophically, everybody was believing in modernism, and we were thinking that the world we are creating will be always better. We are the generation after the war whose parents had to rebuild the country, and we were believing that we are going to continue that work in always doing something better, and part of that philosophy of modernism also carried an ethical, social message that we have to do everything good for everybody in the society, and that kind of responsibility has been very influential in my work. Please.
当我追溯到50年前， 想到这50年间专业的划分发生了巨大的变化。在50年前，作为一名陶艺家和设计师的生活创作更加的简单。那个时候，刚好是战后重建的时期，人们都在寻求希望的曙光。现代化的风潮席卷了整个芬兰和斯堪的纳维亚地区，而现代主义的哲学也影响了我，认为，作为一名艺术家，也应当为社会做出贡献。
About education, I think it is very difficult for me to compare the Chinese education system and the Scandinavian system, but I will try to speak from my own experiments here in Western society. We have our education system has been always very well organized, but it is also very difficult to get into education, so that we have very strict rules how to get into educational system for higher education. But those who will be talented enough and get the place in universities, you know, this has been very good because our system provides free education basically, and it is still that way. But for foreign students, I think the big change happened when we became part of European Union, and we have to introduce fees for education. So we used to have the same rules for foreign students than Finns, that all the education was free, but now we also have a fee for foreign students, which made a big change, I think. But then what has happened in the changes of profession is also reflecting into education, and that is something what I'm going to talk about also.
关于教育行业，我很难比较芬兰和中国教育的不同，但是呢，我想借我个人的经历，讲述芬兰与中国教育的区别。在斯堪的纳维亚地区，高等教育的准入门槛很高，但是好在，所有的教育都是免费的。对于外国学生来说，从前外国学生和芬兰的学生一样，都是免费的教育，都能接受免费的教育。但是现在芬兰，被纳入了欧盟的成员国，因此对于外国学生来说，需要交学费。而专业领域的发生的变化，也对教育领域产生了一定的改变。
And now when I'm speaking to my audience is in Taoxichuan, which also has the great artist residency place. I would like to start by showing you our only ceramic residency in Finland, which is open for international participation. Arctic Ceramic Center has been operating now quite short time, but they became very quickly very important here. And this year, the Conference of International Academy of Ceramics in September will be held by Arctic Ceramic Center. And it will be online, like this lecture, so you have a chance to participate if you will be available on 22nd, 24th September. It is an international event, so but if you cannot join that, you can always apply for visiting here, and you are welcome as soon as our COVID situation will be better. and we can again travel. They are very, very beautifully situated in Arctic area where nature is very clean. It's surrounded by forests and wilderness. It's almost in the Arctic circle, so that if you come in during the summertime, there is 24 hours sunlight in the middle of the summer. If you come in the winter, there will be 24 hours night. So it's the very place with very big opposites. Suku Park from Korea, an artist and professor, he's been in Finland many years, since 1970s when he first came. So he is leading the Arctic Ceramic Center, and he has made this a place for very international place. Many artists from Far East also come there. So we call it their East meets North is the place because of very much because of Suku Park.
我想和陶溪川的观众们分享，在拉普兰的波西奥有一个北极陶艺中心。在这里呢，北极陶艺中心是国际陶艺学会 IAC 的 On the Edge 大会的主办者。这次大会因为疫情受到了影响，改为线上举办。这次大会是在今年9月份举行，如果大家感兴趣的话，也可以线上报名参加。大家可以在国际陶艺学会 IAC 的官方网站上找到更多的信息。如果大家没有时间参加线上大会的话，等疫情结束之后，也非常欢迎大家亲身来到我们的北极陶艺中心。这个北极陶艺中心是芬兰唯一一个开设国际艺术家驻场项目的陶瓷艺术中心。它处在北极圈，是在芬兰的拉普兰。这里的自然环境非常的优美，被森林和湖泊所环绕。这里有着极昼和极夜的现象。这座工坊是最初成立于在北极陶艺中心，韩国艺术家 Suku Park 将东西方的陶艺创作融合在了一起。他也是北极陶艺中心的领导者。Please go on.
Okay. I mentioned that professional life was very much easier when I graduated. So I was almost right away hired by a ceramic factory as a designer, and I spent 10 years in Arabia factory. Name Arabia is a bit strange if we are thinking about we are in Finland. There is no connection to Arabic countries or Arabic culture, but maybe only connection is that coffee to Finland came about the same time when Arabia factory was founded here, 1870s, so long time ago. And we probably were thinking that when the coffee cups are made from porcelain, it is natural to call also the porcelain factory Arabia. Maybe that's the story. I'm not quite sure. But anyhow, we have used to that idea that in Finland we have an exotic industry, porcelain industry, and it has an exotic name. As a designer, I was only in designer's position only 2 years from my career. In the very beginning, I was quite successful with my design, and then I was taken into the management, and I had to spend the next 8 years as a director of the art and design, and was then very much more involved with other people's problems than my own. So my career at Arabia factory was altogether about 10 years.
毕业之后，我直接被阿拉比亚的陶艺工坊雇佣。大家可能很难想象，一个斯堪的纳维亚地区的公司为什么要以阿拉比亚这个名字命名。而我对此的猜测是，在那个时候，在工厂刚刚成立，也就是1870年代，那个时候饮用咖啡的风潮才刚刚兴起。而斯堪的纳维亚地区的咖啡豆大多来自于阿拉伯国家和地区，因此对于制作咖啡杯的陶瓷公司来说，阿拉比亚是一个挺不错的名字。不过现在大家都已经习惯了这个名字。而我在阿拉比亚陶艺工坊作为一名设计师的职业生涯其实只有2年，而在后来的8年时间内，我都是作为一名管理者来管理这个陶艺工坊。我在那里任职的时间一共是10年。Please go on.
Okay, and when we are talking about a time 50 years ago, actually this interaction between art and design becomes very important in that way, that this time when factory was employing designers, they were looking into artists who might be capable to develop as a designers. There was no really designers education. There was education was for becoming artist, and then some of the artists who had interest in solving problems for production and marketing, and who had a view for doing that kind of work, were then hired by the big companies, mostly big companies, to become designers. Okay.
50年前的设计行业和现在的行业状况完全不一样。现在当工厂雇佣艺术家时，他们往往会寻求具有设计能力的艺术家，或是具有艺术感觉、艺术表达能力的设计师。通常这些艺术家或者是设计师要具有能够将灵感直接转化成产品，并进行市场营销的能力。
And Arabia was in Scandinavia one of those companies which had very big art department. The factory itself was employing 2,500 people when it was the biggest, and they had 40 artists in 3 different departments, doing things from shapes to patterns. But then there was a small group of about 10 artists who had freedom to do all the art and concentrate only in their own art, and that was called Arabia Art Department. It was founded 1932, and it was in operation until 2016, when actually the factory then was closed. But we will talk about that later.
在阿拉比亚陶艺工坊艺术部门占据了非常大的比重。他曾经雇佣了40名艺术家，设立了3个部门进行陶瓷生产。其中有2个部门分别是形状和图案设计部门，而另外一个部门由10几名艺术家组成。这些艺术家有着完全的创作自由，能够独立生产他们的作品，独立创作他们的作品。阿拉比亚陶艺工坊开设于1932年，在2016年关闭。关于这一点我们之后会进行讨论。
In some ways, I think we were thinking that way, that free art was the highest degree of what the artists can think about doing, and then applied art and design was the second class, in that way that it was they were actually in the beginning 2 different departments. Art department was in the 9th floor, and it was open for public, and all the visitors came to see that. Design department was closed. It was on the 8th floor, and they had model makers, and everything what was done there was very secret. So it was 2 different worlds, art and design. And but there was an interaction in between of those 2 departments. Of course, both artist and designer were looking for something new. Something what they wanted to do was to create something what was not existing before, and that needed same kind of creativity. Only the consequences and only the situation they were working was very different. But this made me to start to think about how this development can be used as so that both sides will benefit from that. And it also led into the situation during my tenure as a director there, to joining art and design departments together and hiding that bridge between those 2 departments, and joining the forces and making more open situation.
通常来说，我们会认为独立艺术是艺术的最高水准，而设计则稍次于它。我们在阿拉比亚陶艺工坊设立的艺术部门建在9层，而第8层是设计部门。设计和艺术是2个完全不同的领域，但是它们有着很多的相似之处。艺术家和设计师都是在创作初心，都要求具有创意，而这2者的相似之处让我思考，作为一名管理者，我应该如何融合艺术与设计，如何将艺术部门和设计部门结合在一起，将这2股力量合而为一，发挥出更大的潜能。Please go on.
Okay. Some artists like Birger Kaipiainen here were really working very, very large, unique art. This was made in 1960s, very famous. It's only small part of a huge wall what was made for Montreal World Fair and was representing Finland there.
这位艺术家创作的是非常大尺寸的装置艺术，这个照片中的只是整幅墙面的一小部分。
But I think I would like to also mention, especially when speaking to China, that when we are thinking about European porcelain, and if we compare it with China, we have to remember that you have 1,000 years of tradition making porcelain. In Europe, we only have had porcelain here 300 years. So there is a very big difference. And when porcelain was started here in Europe, we were, of course, looking into China. And this is an exhibition we built 1986 to describe the influence what Chinese porcelain had with the designers in Arabia factory. And we called this exhibition Arabian Song. All works by very different artists there were somehow very much related into the Chinese originals, and artists had been seeing these in museums and admired them, and then they try to reach the qualities what they have seen with the Chinese masters doing, without really knowing exactly how they were made. But that was a big challenge and inspiring our artists here.
当我们将欧洲的陶瓷与中国的陶瓷进行对比的时候，我们知道中国有着1000年的生产陶瓷的历史，而对于欧洲来说只有短短的300年。因此当欧洲刚开始生产陶瓷的时候是完全效仿中国的。在这张图片记录了1986年中国对于斯堪的纳维亚地区艺术家陶艺家的影响。当时这场展览的名字叫做阿拉比亚之歌。当时这些艺术家没有办法到中国来，他们只是参观各大博物馆中的中国瓷器，根据它们的形状和颜色猜测这些陶瓷的生产技法，尝试着生产出了这些陶艺作品。
One example is rice porcelain, what was very famous here. And of course, the original idea about making rice porcelain comes from old Chinese innovations. But Friedrich Selber made her own innovations here because she had seen, of course, original Chinese species in museums, but she didn't know how they were made, so she had to invent her own way, making the holes and filling them and so on. So it was still in production here 1970s when I was a student, and I was able to follow these pieces made here in Finland before the porcelain then was discontinued. But very interesting that all these models, which we think very much here as a modern Scandinavian design, but the origin comes from China. Thank you.
当我们看到这张图中的玲珑瓷的时候，我们知道玲珑瓷最初是在中国被发明的，而这位芬兰艺术家他是根据中国的玲珑瓷进行了创新。他当时参观了博物馆里的中国玲珑瓷，但是并不知道这些玲珑瓷的创作技法，因此他不得不自己摸索，并发明出了属于自己的玲珑瓷制法。 1970年代，当我还是一名学生的时候，这些瓷器还在生产。很有趣的是，我们认为的这些像是北欧的设计，最初是来自于中国的。
My mentor in design was art director Kai Frank. He had just retired when I was still student, but I was his assistant teacher when he was teaching ceramic history in the university. So we were able to discuss. Even before I joined Arabia, I was in contact with him. But he had been very important for developing his philosophy for Arabia, and his modern design was one of the very first collections for tableware, but was very plain and modern, and made also Arabia production well known in Scandinavia.
图中的这一位艺术家是我的导师，在他在大学教书的期间，我曾经担任他的助教，因此在我加入阿拉比亚陶艺工坊之前就与他有很深的渊源，而他对于他的现代化设计对于阿拉比亚的创作风格有着很大的影响。他的作品非常的知名，也为阿拉比亚陶艺工坊带来了知名的人气。
My very first job also as a designer or assistant designer was when Kai Frank was working for a glass factory. I joined him as his assistant in 1972 when he was doing this kind of glass work. And I spent 3 months working in a project making these plates and filigrans, what he also was working during that time. 1972.
我作为一名设计师创作的第一幅作品是在1972年。当时这名艺术家是在阿拉比亚工坊创作玻璃。我作为他的助手创作了这幅作品，我花费了3个月的时间才完成他的创作。
My teacher in ceramic art was Kylki Salmenhaara, and her work was very strong, also very much influenced by the Far Eastern ceramics, and also maybe you can see some connection to the Chinese bronzes. But her influence in ceramic art in Finland was very much not only because of her artwork, but also because she was teacher for a long time, from 60s to beginning of 80s. And all my generation of ceramic artists in Finland, they are her students.
而我教授我陶艺专业的导师是这位艺术家，他的作品有着非常浓烈的艺术风格，看上去像是受到了远东宗教元素的影响。我在这里介绍他，不仅是因为他教授了我陶艺，还因为他的教职生涯非常的长，从1960年代到1980年代。我所认识的很多芬兰的陶艺家都是他的学生。
In our training, we were doing both projects with art and design. So I can say that my education already had this idea about interaction between art and design, because what was believed that the sensitivity what an artist has is also needed for a designer, and for a designer it was very helpful to be able to expand his or her qualities of using material with something what he or she had been learning from doing artwork. So combining artwork and design work was all my career. They have been going hand in hand. And of course in teaching we know that you have to experience many different things to become good in video material. These are from, and actually the piece you have on the right hand side is from my works what I did for my diploma work is as a ceramic artist, 1973.
在我们的专业训练当中，艺术和设计是不可分割的。它这两者本身就有着很大的关联性。我们相信艺术家的创作敏感对于设计行业对于设计工作非常有益，而作为设计师对于材料的运用也能够启发艺术的创作。这些右侧的这幅作品是我在1973年本科论文答辩的作品集中的一幅。
If we want to do something bigger and more in quantity in our school, only way to do things was to use this wood kiln. So we had in center of Helsinki, in the basement, we had this very big wood kiln where we had smoke firing, and we can go up to almost cone 10 with wood with this kiln. It had 2 fireplaces both sides of the kiln, and I was actually firing this wood kiln for seven years. Almost every firing I was taking part, and in the end I was often responsible for firing the kiln because I was then assistant teacher. Okay.
如果我们想要烧制更大尺寸、更大批量的作品的时候，我们会用到学校的这一座柴窑。这座柴窑位于赫尔辛基的中心地区。它这座小小的柴窑能够烧到高达10号追温的温度。它有2个窑炉，而我在整整7年的时间内都一直运用这个柴窑烧制作品，以至于到后来大家都开始拜托我来烧制作品，因为我当时是那里的助教。
During my studies, I think what I was looking for was maybe Bauhaus ceramics, maybe the British studio potters, maybe Scandinavian, and also design work what was done. This is an earthenware teapot I made my second year student, during my second year as a student.
这幅陶艺作品是用陶土做成的，是在我本科2年级创作的茶壶。
And then I would like to speak a little bit about how I see, what I look when I want to be studying something, phenomena, what I find interesting. And of course, I look into the nature, and it's very natural in Finland to look for melting ice, because lakes are half a year covered with ice, half a year they are open, and the changes what in nature are very dramatic. Okay. Yeah.
接下
Go
来
ahead, please.
接下来我想谈谈自然界对我创作的影响。在于芬兰，有非常多的湖泊，这些湖泊有半年时间都被冰雪覆盖，而半年时间则是融化的状态。因此我非常喜欢观察冰雪融化的状态，这些自然界的变化非常的剧烈，对我的创作也带来了很大的启发。
And these are just pictures what I have find interesting when I'm looking around. And this is, of course, from a lotus pond very near to Jingdezhen. It's a little bit outside of Jingdezhen city, beautiful place where you can visit and see thousands of lotus.
这张照片是我在随意走动时随手拍摄的这张照片是我随手拍摄的。这张照片拍摄于景德镇边陲的一个莲池。当时那个池子里面有数千朵莲花，非常的壮观。
I can spend hours to look stones if I am in a place where I can see result from the river or seaside. So this kind of study about shape to find beautiful pieces, I can spend hours.
我有时能够花费数几个小时的时间，静静地观察湖泊和河流。我喜欢坐在河岸边。这些石头这些石头记录了我对于自然景象的观察。
But it's not only nature; it's also other things. I'm also interested about architecture, and an example of using one day to look around inside and outside for St. Paul's Cathedral in London was beautiful place. And I'm especially interested about geometry and in architecture. It means that often Renaissance, Baroque are providing very interesting solutions, because those times architects were really looking into creating something extraordinary, and I can spend lots of time looking into these things.
我曾经花费整天的时间漫步于英国伦敦的街头，观察这些建筑室内与室外的建筑风格。我很喜欢这些建筑风格当中的几何形状。它们是文艺复兴时期的巴洛克风格的建筑。我会根据这些建筑风格创作出一些与众不同的设计。
From London to the countryside, David Leeds, son of Bernard Leeds, studio I visited 1972, and this was maybe one of the very first studio potters studios that I saw. I was then a second-year student, and I had been visiting Royal College of Art in London, get some advice where to go. I met David Queensberry and Martin Hunt. Martin was during that time finishing his student work and developing some really nice teapots, and I was joining for the lecture what was given there. And I learned that potters are and ceramic artists are very welcoming people. You can always go and visit them. Yeah, okay, maybe that was important for me because of the difference in the British ceramics was that not everything was depending on so much of industry like it was in Scandinavia during that time. Almost all the important ceramic art was made in factories, but in London, in England, I can see that small studios can be very interesting, and that was opening my eye also in many ways.
当我造访了英国伦敦的乡郊地区时，在1972年，我第一次见识到了我人生中第一次遇见了一位独立的陶艺家。那时候我到访英国的皇家艺术学院，拜访2位艺术家。那时候这2位艺术家在英国皇家艺术学院教授一些陶艺课程。他们人都非常热情，如果大家想去拜访他们的话，他们应当会非常欢迎的。对我来说，这次旅途非常重要，因为我发现了，不是所有的陶艺制作都是依赖于工业的。我发现只有在斯堪的纳维亚地区，陶艺生产才是依托于工厂的。而在英国，大家可以看到很多的独立工作室，这令我大开眼界。
Yeah, I became interested about clays and glazes from meeting with Michael Cardew in Wenford Bridge, where I also was able to see him and his collection of African and own work, but also African ceramics. And that made me to start to study more in depth with materials. Maybe I should speed a little bit with of course I was working in the studio. I was drawing myself, my shapes. I was doing my artwork and tableware, and also studying food culture, because being a designer you have to know how your pieces are used. So then this my design from 1977 became very successful, and it was in production almost 40 years. Okay.
当时我还拜访了另外一位艺术家，他向我展示了他的非洲陶艺的藏品以及他自己个人的作品。在与他的交流和切磋当中，我对于材料运用的理解变得更加的深刻。我自己也在工作室创作了一些日用器皿，在创作这些日用器皿的过程中，我对于饮食文化的理解，我也了解了更多关于饮食文化 的知识。这幅作品是在1977年创作的。这是一个给食物加温的一个陶锅。当时这个作品非常热卖。当然这已经是40年前的故事了。
So working in industry, making a design, it was very important for me also to work with artwork at the same time and share my time not only with designing but also doing some individual work. It was really enriching my life and my work. I think it was affecting both ways. So I think my artwork became more interesting because of what I did as a designer, solving some problems, technical and so on. But also my design became more, I became more aware of the ceramic material qualities, what can be developed when I was able to do my artwork.
当然我不仅仅创作了一些设计产品，我还创作了属于我个人的艺术作品。我认为在我创作艺术作品和设计产品的过程中，这两种经验是有着双向的影响的。我的艺术创作使得我的产品设计变得更加有趣，而在设计过程中的一些对于材料的运用和一些技法上的精进，使得我的设计作品也更加的美观。
I think it's also a similar way of thinking with the other colleagues about my generation. Kati Tuominen, for example, she is working very much the same way. She is developing ideas with her unique artwork and then making things in design at the same time. So I'm not the only one in Scandinavia and in Finland thinking that interaction between art and design can be very fruitful and very good. So maybe it is this Scandinavian situation where factories have been employing so many artists for a long time. So especially many artists who are working for industry are working with similar ways. Also Kristina Riska, both of them, they are still working in Arabia Art Department, and they have been working together developing things for production. So these are storyboard jacks for Kati Tuominen on the left-hand side, and then a tableware set what they did together for Arabia a few years ago. Shows that other artists also in Scandinavia, in Finland, they are working the similar way. Art and design in interaction.
接下来我想为大家介绍一些我所认识的艺术家同事们。首先这位艺术家他和我一样都是同时进行艺术创作和设计创作的。因此我并不是唯一一个斯堪的纳维亚地区认为艺术和设计应当互相交融的艺术家。可能是因为在斯堪的纳维亚地区艺术家们都被工厂所雇用，因此我们的创作方式都非常的相似。而接下来的这位艺术家他也是以 相似的方式进行艺术和设计作品的创作的。这些艺术家他们都还在阿拉比亚陶艺工坊的艺术部门进行创作。这张照片中的作品是几位艺术家共同创作的。
I think this is somehow changing now. Some of the younger generation, like Pekka Paikkari, they are really working with the artwork almost completely different ways as they design. They have also Pekka has been working for design, of course, but because he's been doing most of his work in somehow connection with the factories, but then especially the younger generation who are now new makers and the makers of the future, they may be thinking differently from this. Kim Simonson, who is one of my students, has developed very much different way. He also is developing very unique surfaces and designs, but his artwork is very emotional, very touching. He's been very successful now. Please.
我认为现在的年轻一代与我们之前的陶艺家有着很大的不同。这些艺术家所创作的艺术作品，非常的与众不同，他们是未来的开拓者。我的这位学生创作的方式也很新颖。他创作的他的材料以及他的创作表面类似于纺织物。他的作品非常的具有饱含情感，并且能够引人共鸣。他现在已经非常知名了。
At this point, I would like to mention or open this discussion a little bit into some more theoretical part. And artification is an aesthetic term for what is happening in an art world, a tendency where expanding the artist possibilities happens when artists are turning non-art into art. That can be seen very often in the radical new work. We see art what with the first look don't only look beautiful, they are maybe interesting, something new there, but if you are thinking more conceptually, more you can see that they are working in the new area of aesthetics, expanding what was possible before. And I think this is also not something new. This is one young student in the university who was doing a project with animal rights ideas. She was using pigs and animal bones and pig's air in here as air for the cup and so on. So that in an idea to get us to think about what rights animals have and how we are using the animal parts in many different ways. And here she was using them in areas which make us to wonder what she really means. Okay.
而在 进行艺术的哲学探讨时，我们总是会提到人造这个概念，这并不是什么新鲜的话题，但是我们能根据这一概念重新对艺术进行审视。艺术就是创作初心，而在人造这一单词中，艺术家们会将艺术这一概念的外延进行扩充，这使得艺术变得更加多元和生机勃勃。艺术家们会将一些我们过去认为丑陋的形象，用艺术的表现形式重新进行诠释，这使得艺术的定义和界限变得模糊不清。一些我们以为是非艺术的事物也变成了艺术。这就是艺术的意义所在，因为艺术家们会不断的扩充和更新着艺术的定义。而在这幅作品当中，我的一名学生，这是我的一名学生创作的作品，他将猪的耳朵和一些骨头的元素装饰在了器皿的表面，用此来呼吁人们对于动物的保护。
And you can see that we are moving away from the modernistic ideas. We are moving somewhere closer to the fine art and what is happening there. We are facing different aesthetics. And when we are now building new generations' work, and the education, we have to think about, should we widen a scope? Should we open art education more to be common with the fine art education, or should we separate the design education from art education? So this is these are the issues what we are thinking when we are now looking into what Aalto University, for example, in the future will develop as study programs. Oh, please.
我们会发现现在的这些艺术作品离现代主义的实用性越来越发的遥远，而离美观性而更加的追求事物的美观性。新时代的艺术作品非常已经与我们那个时代完全不同。因此我们开始思考，在学科的划分过程当中，我们是否应该将艺术和设计融合，还是应该将艺术和设计作为单独的学科进行单独划分。
When Aalto University was developed, the idea was to put 3 universities together: University with Science and Technology, University of Business, and Art and Design University, and create a bigger unit where there is more synergy between all these 3 areas. And I think mainly they were thinking that this kind of university will be better will create a better culture for innovations, and also it was the idea to open art for students who are studying business or technology, and to enrich the culture in those 3 different universities. Also teaching more business and technology to art students to become maybe more interesting art in some ways, combining those 3 areas. Here you can see that the university was put together, and we often say that it is a new university, but all the 3 universities, they have their roots 100 years back. art university as a craft school, business university as a economy school, and then polytechnic was developed into art, science and technology university. But now they are all together in this new to be a new university. I've been, of course, involved with the education for a long time, but I left for retirement exactly the time when the three universities went together. So I was still in the process of developing the new situation, but there is many changes happening in the education now, and I can only follow it from my retirement place. Sorry.
Sorry. 阿尔托大学 Sorry.
Okay.
You continue.
Yeah. Okay. I would like to go into the changes what are happening in the education where ceramic and glass is part of design school. Now, ceramic art can be done, but actually the program is more based on design and research. But because we have also opened the studies into covering everything from art to design, so we have also now a possibility for our students to be working with ceramic and joining that with completely with art studies. So actually this new university, even if it looks like the ceramic and glass is more in design, but it is actually also opening ceramic art and ceramics and glass both to be open more into very free artwork. So the new Aalto University is opening things to all directions. Partly also because we have introduced a doctoral program where our graduates in postgraduate studies, they can develop their own research starting from their own interests. And there they can combine studies with art department. Please.
阿尔托大学是在阿尔托大学以阿尔托的名字命名。这是一位生于1898年、卒于1976年的设计师、家具和玻璃设计师。2014年，赫尔辛基理工大学和赫尔辛基艺术设计大学以及赫尔辛基经济学院3所大学合并为现在的阿尔托大学。阿尔托大学的陶艺部门最初成立于1902年，有着120年的历史。这所大学里的所有专业都有着100年以上的历史。在芬兰，陶艺专业不是一个独立的专业，而是通常开设在艺术或艺术与设计专业下的一个分支。很多欧洲国家都对教育系统和结构进行了改革，这些专业不再以材料进行划分，专业培养出设计人才，而不局限于任何一种材料的使用。现在有很多的学生会选择陶艺专业，但同时也会接触其他材料的设计。今天的教育系统与以往的全然不同，再也没有以单一材料为主导的学科了。你可以选择一个主攻方向，但是却不能局限于一种材料。这就意味着我们需要接受更多的通识教育和学习其他学科的逻辑。而在 阿尔托大学自2016年起，阿尔托大学的陶艺与设计专业就被划分进了设计大类。当这3所大学合并的时候，我已经退休了，因此我只能通过我退休后的情况，了解一些现在学校的相关信息。
These are examples of what our students can do. A group of students were in Jingdezhen two years ago, and they did a project there. They spent 3 weeks working, and in that very short time, they were able to do things. They were in a ceramic institute, and in this international school there. It was very interesting because it was also part of what we try to do in the university very much, sending our students for a short time out to other countries and working in new situations where they can develop to become more international. And in this way, I think this interaction also is between different cultures. As a designer, you have to create understanding of your own culture, but that can be only developed into deeper meaning if you know other cultures. So actually, studying abroad teaches you a lot about who you are and what is your own culture. In some ways, a trip to other culture is also a trip to yourself in the mind.
这一些陶艺作品是阿尔托大学的陶艺专业学生，在2年前到景德镇陶艺大学进行国际交流时创作的作品。当时他们在景德镇驻场了3个礼拜。我认为，学校间的国际交流。Sorry, I haven't.
I can see that our time.
Yes.
Our time is getting very short, so I would like to, in the end of this presentation, I would like to show very quickly about how important for myself it has been to travel and come to different parts of China. And I will show my rest of my slides quite quickly, but you will get an idea what I have been doing, both first in Japan, but then also in China, in different places where I have been able to join several different residencies and doing some research on Chinese culture. But at the same time, this has been a long and very fruitful study trip for me to learn about who I am, who is this Scandinavian artist and designer, to really deeper understand myself. And it has happened by studying Chinese culture. And I will show you these slides. Please translate this part, and then I will go very quickly through my slides.
OK， 刚才还没有讲完，就是不同学校间的国际交流能够使学生具有更广泛的国际视野，而作为一名艺术家，需要对本国文化有很深的理解，而对于其他文化的理解，其他文化的学习能够加深我们对于本国文化的理解。之后Tapio提到，他意识到我们的时间现在已经非常紧张了，因此他将快速的浏览一些图片，这些图片是他在中国以及日本驻场以及教学时期拍摄的照片。这些照片记录了他作为一名陶艺家，一名芬兰陶艺家的创作旅程。 他想通过这些图片展示出他是怎样的一名艺术家与设计师。
Okay, and these are my own feats, but in a project in Shigaraki Ceramic Cultural Park, I was there for 2 months. It was not long enough for me to see my work installed in this park, and so I'm glad that I then later all suddenly I got these pictures from Zhang Lingyun, who had been also in Shigaraki Ceramic Park, and she was kind enough to send me some pictures of my work. So now I have seen them ready, fired, and so on. But these are examples of what I did there. They are quite big, made by, yeah, okay.
这些照片是15年前我在日本的陶艺之森驻场时创作的。说起来很有趣，我并没有亲眼见到照片中的这些景象。我在那里驻场创作了2个月，我将它们送入窑炉中烧制后就离开了，因此我并不知道它们烧成后的样子。这些照片是我景德镇的朋友张林老师拍摄后发给我的。
And then in Jingdezhen, I have been coming for 20 years, a little bit over. I first came to China 95. And that was to Beijing to teach in central school there. But Jingdezhen 2000, and it has been very eye-opening for me. For the big celebration of Jingdezhen 1,000 years of porcelain making, we brought also an exhibition from with my students. We brought an exhibition there. You can maybe try to translate at the same time, I hope, because we don't have so much time. So I would like to go.
But I don't know what you have prepared. So
okay,
I have to translate after you speak.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay. This is about my travel in China, my drawings, how I experience different things. It has been also partly exchange with what we did with when Wei Jin. He came to Aalto University. He spent 1 year in Finland, and I've been over there a few times. In JCA, I was doing a visiting artist program there, and this was 2017, 2015. Sorry, and then 2017 I was in doing a project for Liling Museum. These are from that period, yes. Okay, this is also.
我最初到中国是在1995年的时候，我在中国北京的清华大学教授陶艺课程，而我初次到达景德镇是在20年前。那时候我在景德镇驻场创作了一些作品，之后我又在每隔几年的时间内返回到景德镇进行驻场创作。这些照片都是我在景德镇创作时拍摄的照片。
Maybe you already noticed what I was interested about St. Paul's Cathedral. It was the rounds and shapes, how they are from seen from different directions, how they can relate and transform when we are looking shapes, geometrical shapes from different directions. And this is what I'm also trying to do with my own work, to play with visual effects. And of course, in this case, it was made in a factory that was producing tables for garden tables, and this is what I did for my art there.
这些作品是一些摆放在公园的桌面，它们是我在中国的三宝创作的，它们是在工厂进行创作的。这些是我利用了很多几何形状，我想利用圆形在从不同角度观察时形状的改变，设计出这些桌面的装饰元素。
I've been always, from the very beginning of my studies, I have been very interested about reduction firing and of course then the celadons, and I was very happy to be able to work in Celadon Research Center in Longjuan and make some work there.
而在2017年，我又到了龙泉，学习了还原烧制的技法。
Also some tableware I made in Longjuan.
这些是我在龙泉创作的一些日用器皿。
And then 2018 and 19 I was in Taoxichuan.
而在2018年到2019年，我又在陶溪川进行了驻场创作。
And I was of course very fascinated about Song Dynasty tableware, which I was able to see in Jingdezhen, the collections what the institution has there.
而我也非常有幸曾经参加了一场用宋代器皿举办的宋宴。我非常喜欢这场宴会当中宋代瓷器的形制。
And I developed my own geometry and own design in using 3D milling.
我用 3D 设。
In Jingdezhen, I find this Mosen studio where they had very good facilities and where they were able to help me developing these.
而我设计了一些我独创的 3D 打印造型。我在景德镇发现了一家非常棒的 3D 打印工作室，在他们的合作和帮助之下，我设计出了这些产品。
And Taoxichuan was offering me very beautiful space, second floor studio, which I was using for 2 times visiting there.
而陶溪川给我提供了非常优美的创作环境，那是在陶溪川的2楼，我在那里创作了2次。
And this is the tableware, and this is how it fit with the Chinese food.
这些是我用我所创作的日用器皿，盛放中国食物的样子。
Okay, I'm afraid I have used my time, and I would like to end with this slide, reminding you that when I'm talking about interaction between art and design, I don't mean that art is design. Art and design are 2 very separate professions, and they may look the same, but you have to be very critical in what kind of skills and what kind of ways of decision making you are facing in those 2 different and separate arts areas of expertise. And, okay, thank you.
最后我想说的是，艺术并不是设计，我们应当用批判的眼光看待艺术与设计之间的差别。因为艺术和设计很相似，他们都要求创作初心，但是设计师是以人为本，从人的需求出发创作出产品，而艺术家则更加的自由。
I hope we have still some time for questions, and if we can have some discussion. I would like to hear the feedback from the students, especially from there, who might have some questions. If I can then complete and answer you.
现在进入观众提问环节。如果大家有问题想问艺术家的话，请将问题打在公屏上，我们将随机选取4到5个问题，请艺术家解答。现在请大家将问题打在公屏上。Thank you so much for this wonderful speech. Now it's time for our audiences to ask you some questions. We're going to select 4 to 5 of them for you to answer. And now we will wait for the audiences to type their questions.
Okay, yes, please. I guess it's maybe getting so late in Jingdezhen already. So I made you tired. Sorry.
But same to you. You might got pretty tired now.
Well, you know, it is only afternoon in Finland, so it's not so late here. Okay. So I'm okay.
Thank you.
It might be that my presentation was from a different world. I know that in China, education system is different from ours, and also the industry is very different from what we have. So it might be difficult for you to understand what I'm talking, but I think I would like to invite you to come over to Finland and learn from here. For me, it has been very, very important to travel and to be able to come to China because we are different. And you can learn from your own background by going to another culture, and then you will understand how you are different and what could be different in another if you could be in another culture. So I think for me, traveling has been always.
Excuse me. So there's the first question.
Okay, good.
So the first question is from exclamation, and he asked that in the art creation, how can we use the multiple materials? How can we work with different? How can we work with ceramic materials and other multiple materials?
I think, especially today, we don't, in our education, we don't give very strict limitations anymore. You know, we don't think that when we are making art, we are starting everything with the material and limiting ourselves in only one material. We are encouraging our students to work with ideas and then choose the material according to their ideas, what they have. There might be something where you can use glass instead of ceramics, or wood or textile that serves better your idea. And you can maybe combine different materials to make a statement. You know, clay is a material what can take almost any shape. It can imitate other materials. You can make something what looks like different material and fool the eye by that material. So I think clay is wonderful material from that point. that it really doesn't need to look always the same. Sometimes you can really fool the eye by making clay to look other material. So I'm not sure if I can really answer to your question, but
Okay. Yeah,
but making art, I think you should really start from the idea and start from the emotions. Start from not primarily thinking about that this has to be looking like ceramics.
Okay.
It can be also that you want to combine the ceramic with other material and make a statement that way.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
第一个问题，第一个问题来自于感叹号。他问的问题是，请问艺术创作中综合材料怎样才能与陶瓷更加契合？对此，Tapio 教授的回答是，在我们芬兰的教育体系当中，对于材料没有严格的限制，我们不是以材料为主导来进行教学的。所有艺术创作都不局限于单一材料，而是从理念出发，选择合适的材料进行创作。比如说，我们可以选用玻璃、木材等等其他材料来代替陶瓷这一材料。而，我认为粘土这种材料是非常完美的，因为它可以被制作成任何形状，也可以模仿其他材料的肌理，使其看上去像不同。使其模仿其他不同的材料。
More questions?
Yeah, so the second question is from, just let me see. So the second question is from Lei Jing, and he asked that when transforming the artworks to the utility design works, do you have any tips for that?
Okay, maybe most important is to say that there is no shortcuts, so that there is no some trick what can make your idea move from art to design. So this interaction between art and design is not a shortcut. It sometimes maybe means a longer way, but it is a possibility for expanding what you think is possible. Because if you limit your ideas into what you have seen before, or like often people are saying that, okay, go and look what is in the market and then make your own design. This is not really a good advice. You should try to look into your own mind and find there something what is not yet in the market, what you cannot find in the market, and then you to be able to create something so different, you have to take a risk of making a big failure, making a big mistakes, and but if you are looking into something what you find really interesting from the material, and then you start looking, how could I use this? Could it be possible to make it into art? And then if you can do that, then you may think that, okay, what about, could there be something what I can do in design? It can be something what start from the material mistakes, make your mistakes into something what can be successful, because nobody else was looking beyond from the mistakes. You know, you should not be afraid of making mistakes, because mistakes might be leading you into something where nobody has been before. And if you are brave enough to go over the barriers what are set, you know, and reach into something where you can develop ideas from something what in a way you have to be brave enough to be weak and take a risk to be able, you know, you have to not be afraid of making mistakes. Really, that's maybe the biggest advice is that sometimes you can find the most valuable things by taking a risk, doing something what you may think this might fail, but just to make it. And then it is the question is how to make it into success. You have to be strong to really to see what is possible then, and be able to work with ideas what other people maybe first looking think that, okay, this is not going to be anything good. But if you will believe it in yourself, you might be able to find something but nobody else has been touching before. And that can be a success. It can be a failure, but don't mind. Try again. And the second time, once you have done it 100 times, I often say to my students that, okay, you have to have 100 ideas to find one good idea what can be successful. But you have to go on, and you have to be really not given up. Okay, maybe that's my advice.
第二个问题 ，Thank you。第二个问题来自于雷景，他问的是从艺术作品中转化出实用的设计作品，你有哪些方面的诀窍？对此 ，Tapio 的回答是：我认为从艺术作品到设计作品是没有任何捷径的，这是一条非常漫长的路。但是我们需要拓宽自己的眼界，不要局限于自己的现有的思维。有时候观察市场并迎合市场并不是一个很好的选择，我们需要观察内心，找到市场中尚未存在的可能性。而我认为最重要的一点就是要学会要敢于犯错，要承受失败的风险。如果你能够足够勇敢地突破现实的困境，并且能够做到足够强大，创作出一些他人认为很古怪的事物，自成一派的话，总有一天你会成功的。要知道从100次的失败经验当中，你总能找到一条通往成功的路。最重要的是坚持，以及不要害怕犯错。So the third question is from Zhang Lingyun. He asked that, she asked that, how do you combine the rational and emotional feelings both in your design works?
I think it is a very important question. I try to be very simple with my ideas. I want to I want to see the complicated thing in a very simple phenomenon. So, because often it is so that we underestimate visual effects, and we try to maybe often put too many things in one, like I had too many slides. Okay, but so I want to work very simple way, and then what I believe that if I'm very simple, then it emphasize the small detail. You start seeing more in small things when you make it very clear what and if the color is important, try to make it so that your eye will catch the color, and the surroundings should make it stronger. If you want to play with something what is very emotional, then make that into the point, and reduce other things. So I think combining, sometimes of course you can put many things together and make that into a point. It's also possible. I can say that giving advice is so difficult, because once you give one advice, I can say that there's if I'm rethink, I might give a completely different advice for you to be and you can be as successful. So there is no only one way to do things, and I don't think I can really give you big shortcuts into how to develop successful artwork, or design. But I think what is important is to try to teach your eye and teach your fingers to feel very sensitively, so that you can trust your emotions, and by doing this in the way that you work systematically, often if you change two things in a work, you get lost, because you don't know what was the affecting what it is good to make short steps, only change one thing at a time and then go into the new. Maybe you noticed with my work that I'm repeating the same things many times. There are small changes, and I look back, and maybe in some cases quite a lot of time has passed, and I go back and look into things new with new eye, and I can maybe feel things differently if time goes by. So I don't have an answer. This was my answer. Okay.
Thank you so much. 最后一个问题是来自于张凌云教授的，他问到，请问您是如何将理性与感性共同的呈现在您的设计作品当中的？对此 Tapio 教授的回答是， 我通常喜欢以小见大，以浅见深。我喜欢从简单的事物当中发掘出背后更深的含义，因此呢，我会用更简洁的风格强调出它更多的细节。比如说，如果颜色是我作品当中的主导风格的话，那么我就会用颜色去我会用颜色更加细腻地体现出不同的情感。如果说我想在作品当中体现出感性的元素的话，那么我会更多的强调这一点，而去掉其他多余的元素。我喜欢去繁留简。要知道，给大家提出建议是非常难的一件事情，因为如果我建议大家这么做，那么但是其实通往成功的道路并不止一条，其他的做事方法也是能够达到最终的目的的。而唯一要坚持的一点就是认真钻研的匠人精神。我认为我能够给出的建议是，我们需要不断的训练自己的感官，使它们变得更加的敏感。这样的话，我们就能够相信自己的直觉和最细微的情绪。当我们培养出了这种身体的肌肉记忆的时候，就能够熟能生巧。这些一小步的改变，最终会积累成很大的变化。虽然我们在这个过程当中可能意识不到自己的改变，但是积累了一定的时间之后，我们会再回过头看，就会发现我们看待事物的眼光已经不是之前的样子了。当然，其实我对于这个问题没有很好的答案，没有答案就是我的答案。谢谢大家。感谢大家参与今晚的线上讲座，也非常感谢Tapio教授为我们带来的精彩内容。下周三晚8点，我们还将邀请美国艺术家 Jingdezhen 分享他的创作经历，请大家持续关注陶溪川国际教育平台，我们还将推出更多的线上课程与活动。Thank you, Professor, for sharing your works and stories with us. We were really impressed. Thanks everybody for your attention. Thanks for coming. And I hope you all enjoyed our lecture today. Next time we will have another online lecture held by American artist Jingdezhen. Hope to see you there.
Okay, thank you very, very much. It is a great honor and pleasure to be in this series of lectures. I really enjoyed, and especially because I can see that in Taoxichuan you are doing so professionally excellent work, and I hope you can expand this also and open these lectures to the rest of the world as much, because I think you are very advanced in what you are doing, and I congratulate the excellent staff there in Taoxichuan who you are doing this important work. And thank you very much for giving me a chance to be in this program. Thank you.
非常感谢陶溪川给我这次机会举办线上讲座。我认为陶溪川现在已经非常的先进了。而我想必大家对于芬兰的陶艺界也并没有很多的了解。如果大家感兴趣的话，我推荐大家到芬兰来接受陶艺教育。我认为不同文化之间的交流是非常重要的。谢谢大家。